Hi, it's Arky3. I hope you'll join Shirley and I as we explore this ridge in the Organ Mountains of southern New Mexico. We are always in awe of what we discover when we go out here. So come along and stick to the end because it's all pretty interesting. As you watch this video, notice how all these ridges and even all the mountains in the background have disturbances and big cuts in them. And then down in the valley, it's all been engineered so that it has subtle terracing and there's berms to direct the water around. This is all agricultural. And when you see faces on the hill, they're really there. That's not accidental. That's man-made. You can even see it in satellite photos that this whole ridge has just been totally disturbed. So we went all the way out to the north to this thing I'm calling Skull Rock. And then we worked our way back around to the middle of the ridge. And when you go look closely, you see that all the rocks here have been carved and stacked up and painted to create all these different figures. This looks almost like a Ramos polychrome figure.
I just wanted to show here there's this almost large canal-like feature here running along the base. It's been built up. There's a berm here. So this whole plain down here, this flat, it was all agricultural. You can see just all the desert plants out here. It's all useful. These prehistoric empire builders, they would have been using every bit of this land. Every one of these plants had a purpose.
Each one of these rock outcroppings you see is an actual masonry feature that's been built up and plastered over.
So here's this large rock shaped like a skull. It's about 30 feet wide, 20, 25 feet tall. It's pretty large. Has drill holes in it that have been filled with mortar. And I'll go over there and show you closer. Then we'll probably go up to some of these shelters here. But not all the way up to the top. Lots of areas here to explore. We've never been up this other canyon to the north. So here we are out at this really large skull rock. It's our second time out here. Had to come out with a better camera. It's all been carved. It's covered in some hieroglyphs. And again has drill holes filled with mortar through it. So this has been detached from somewhere, probably up on the hill. Maybe it was going to be taken back up and set up on the hill as a memorial to somebody. These are all monuments to people. Just like Easter Island, these pagan tribes all over the world, they built these big stone monuments to themselves. archaeologists don't see it because they're saying everything is natural. They're not looking for it. And they don't understand that there were these empire builders right here in southern New Mexico.
So as you look around this area, you can see it's just all been totally disturbed and rocks are moved around all over the place. And then you see all the art that's built into the sides of the hills. All the rocks that have been stacked up to create heads and faces. And again, it's all apparent in satellite photos. So hopefully by now you can see that this is all man-made. So let's look at this hill just to the north here. In satellite photos you can see forms the face of an elf. And you can see how they divided the landscape up with these different disturbances and cuts and rock walls and such. And this is all on really steep mountains. It's so amazing that it's hard to comprehend that they did this. Not only that, but you can see that this whole mountain is masonry work. You can see all the imagery and the art in the side of this hill. So now we're up at the shelters, up higher on the ridge line.
I want to show you here another place where there's this pile of rocks in front of an alcove. I think that they were interring people in these little alcoves like this, and that they would have put some masonry up in front of it and then plastered over it.
So these shelters don't appear to be anything natural. They're not eroded out or created by any other sort of natural process, but neither are they carved in by man. They appear to be being built outward out of masonry. So they would stack rocks up and they would leave a shelter underneath. They would inter more people, put more rocks in front of that. So the insides of these shelters are all coated with some sort of stucco or concrete-like material with different minerals to create these colors. So you can see here this rock that's obviously been carved into a head and shoved in here between these other rocks by human beings and not by nature. And again, here are two big boulders that have all been carved and sitting out here in the open with other big rocks on top of them. And from up at the shelter, you can see this north ridge line I showed you earlier forms giant faces. I believe that that's all masonry work, that they took these hills apart, took all the rocks and rebuilt it into these monuments to themselves because they were obsessed with their legacy. So this is the view of that giant skull rock from the shelters above, rotated as if it were upright. And then up above us on the top of the ridge is this monument. So we'll take a closer look at this. So we went back down to the bottom and made our way farther to the south. All this rounded material, it's all coated with some sort of plaster, stucco-like concrete. And it's all built out of bits of rock all stacked up. This is pretty interesting monument here. It has a cross. Some crusader-ish looking iconography here. I believe that there were Christians among the tribes of the Aztec, and this could have been an unknown crusade or a forgotten crusade. So once you start studying these hills closely, you can see that this is all man-made and it's all masonry work. You can see all the rocks stacked one on top of the other. You can see the mortar. You can see the coating of concrete.
Show you this area back here. It's a big flat, cleared area. And it looks just like what they were doing in Easter Island when they were carving rocks out of the side of the hill. You can see the lines where they were taking big chunks of rock off of this face. I'll go over there and show it to you closer.
And one of the themes you'll see in all this artwork are people that are wearing the skins of animals and the masks of different animals because they were taking care of wild animals as zookeepers.
So this big feature looks like a nursemaid. Well, it would be like a storyteller in Pueblo culture. I think that they were originally nursemaids, and when the Spanish came and they had problems with the human body, they turned nursemaids into the storyteller figures.
Here's a close-up of this stucco material and all the different minerals that are added to it to make these different colors. Here you can see where there's round rocks that form eyes. If you remember from looking farther back at the beginning, there were faces on the side of the hill. These are some of the eyes that you see. And this big rock that's a head looking up into the air. Notice all the rocks stacked around it.
So this big formation is really pretty cool. See, it's all carved. It's got holes in it, drill holes. And you can see how this is giant masonry work, how these are all big blocks of stone that have been placed in here. And then they plaster over it, mortar between them.
And this monument is where I just become incredulous that modern humans can't see that this is all man-made. So I'd like to pause here for a little bit and talk about this feature. You can see this Egyptian character right here. And to his right, you can see two figures that look like they're from Asia or India. Someone's reaching out and pulling a snake out of another person's nose. Beyond that, there's two more characters, and then back here to the left, there's two more characters. I believe these are the tribes of the Aztec. It's written in their history that they were one of 7 tribes. So the Aztecs have this story about Quetzalcoatl circling Mictlan 4 times, and then crashing into a pit of bones and creating all the different sizes and types of people in the world. So it shouldn't be a surprise that this is here. We should expect there to have been empire builders here, because this is the area of the Chichimec where the Aztecs came from. And we know all this from Aztec history, but it gets ignored by archaeologists in this area for some reason. But these people came from all over the world in order to help the Aztecs in their fight for an empire in the Valley of Mexico. And I believe that among them were Christians, and that this was a crusade for them that Christians participated in, but nobody knows anything about. On a previous trip, we got these pictures that really captured some different colors at this feature. You can see these clear faces. Around the corner are some more shelters. So you can see at these 2 shelters that there are these 3 giant heads. This is all masonry work. It's being built out from the hill, and these cavities are being left in there. The people are going to be interred in there, and it's all going to be covered up, and you'll never know it's there. The inside is all painted and carved or shaped out of masonry work. From a distance, you can see what it looks like, and then in close, you can see that all around these shelters, it's all decorated with all this art. So at the top of the ridge in this middle area are a series of monuments that are pretty nice. Bunch of columnar features depicting different figures and characters. So I'll show you some more of that. You can see how there's a flat area on the top of the hill that these monuments have been built on. So these columns of figures like this could be some sort of hieroglyphic writing. So Shirley and I have been exploring this area for a few years now. We're always in awe of what we find, from sphinx to masonry work to carvings in mortar to just giant monuments. It's all just so amazing. The giant memorial showing people crawling on the ground, sneaking up on animals, because this is an area is dedicated to zookeepers who are represented as Dracula and all these other figures like elves. People with masks, pointy ears, often shown reclining, feeding animals. Whole scene showing animal husbandry. And little touches everywhere. A bird on his nose, creatures looking down at you, some guy way up on top of a ridge looking down on you. You can see the masonry work around him. Little touches like this everywhere. Guy looking down at you from top of this giant rock. Everything is a face and the side of a hill. And I believe it's all been built up as masonry. They took the whole hill apart, redid it the way they wanted it, put tombs in here. And I believe they lived here in shelters like this that you just can't detect all the artifacts, the signs of work are at the sites where the slaves were. These were the elite people. And they're depicted in the side of the hill, from both on the ground and in the air. And you can match all the figures and satellite photos up with these disturbances and figures from the ground. And the only way you could create all this is to build it all out yourself. You can see how disturbed this whole area is. And here are a bunch of people that I think are the tribes of the Aztec again. So if you zoom out, I want to show you that the area we were in is way over here on this right side, where you see kind of this light area, maybe in the shape of a parrot on somebody's arm. That's where we just were in this video. This is the whole East Mesa of Las Cruces, and all the black area is an acacia farm. And one really dark black area down here at the bottom is a mountain. So at all levels, no matter how high or close you get, it forms this art. even in the vegetation itself. You can see here with these acacia farms. All the light areas around are obvious farmland that have been cleared. You can see the actual contour agricultural features out there. So hopefully you can see by now that there's no way that any of this is natural, that it's all man-made. If you can't wrap your head around that, it's okay. We've all been brainwashed to believe that everything is natural, or that all disturbance is historic. And we can't rely on experts like geologists and archaeologists when they say that this isn't real, that this is someone's imagination, because they don't go out and study to see if it might actually be man-made. And it's pretty obvious when you do go out and study closely that this is all man-made, and that there's no other explanation for how all these rocks got this way. And because geologists and archaeologists make assumptions about everything, they don't realize that there were these really complex, sophisticated empire builders here, the tribes of the Aztec, and that all this is actually written in Aztec history. And they don't realize that these tribes were all over the world doing the same thing.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?